Hello, everyone, and welcome to Show Studio's live panel discussions. In these discussions, a selection of Central State Masters graduates will discuss and debate the most important topics influencing the season. Today, for our first panel of the season, we're going to be discussing lockdown world. I'm the host of this panel discussion. My name is Gareth Wrighton. I'm a fashion designer, image maker. I do lots of fashion stuff, but I'm a graduate of the course that our guests are from today. I graduated in 2016, so I kind of know how these guys are feeling. But when I didn't graduate during a global pandemic, so I'm so pleased to be able to talk to some of the class of 2021. And yeah, we're just going to find out, we're going to discuss lockdown worlds with relation to like fashion imagery. I can't wait. So I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. Shall we start with Felix?
Hi, my name's Felix. I'm just graduated from BA Fashion Communication Promotion from St Martin's.
And then Nini.
Hi, I'm Nini. I'm graduating from Fashion Journalism course.
And then Isabel.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm from Fashion Communication as well, and Promotion, that one.
And Simone.
Hi, I'm Simone, and I also come from Fashion Communication and Promotion.
Would you guys just like to sort of set the scene where you're currently at? Do you want to just talk about the work that you've been producing over the last year, your final major project? Felix, should we start?
Yeah, sure. So my project, I had sort of photographed what was around me. So I ended up choosing the sea. I was staying with my parents by the coast for a lot of lockdowns, so I had to incorporate that into my project. And during like the height of lockdown, one of the few things I could do was go for a walk on the beach, and so I tried to find a way to incorporate that. I'd sort of find things on various walks. I'd find like fish bones and shells, and sort of bring that into my work and how I design and plan my shoots.
It's beautiful. It's like the most beautiful imagery. Nini, would you like to talk about Freak magazine?
Yeah, so Freak is publication. It's print publication. It's basically Freak is a word which is contraction of phone and freak, and it means sort of like hacking into communication systems. And the magazine is about image makers, designers, and artists who sort of go against the mainstream. And the themes throughout was like this idea of creating dangerously. So like taking perils like societal and personal and turning into work of art, or clothes or images. So yeah.
Thank you. And Isabel?
My final project was about, I saw last year loads of my friends graduated, and I saw this weird kind of empty, not really knowing what to do with yourself feeling of them having been in education for, our whole lives. And there was this kind of, okay, what do I do with myself now? And I guess that was emphasized more from COVID and everything. But yeah, I made a series of photographs based around those themes. Women as my focus as well, just because they're the best. And yeah, using lighting to create kind of cinematic scenes as well, which, yeah, that's it really.
Yeah, it was like too real.
Good.
Simone?
My project kind of came from so I spent my whole placement year working in music and traveled and went on tour, and it was like incredible and really fun because I love being surrounded by music. And then as soon as COVID hit, it kind of like stopped the whole music industry as well as the fashion industry. And I was living with my friend Tiffy, whose artist name's Nailika, and she was making an EP during lockdown. And it was just that feeling of missing the live aspect of music and kind of figuring out how you work with finding a live aspect in music if it's digital. So she has this, it's 5 songs on the EP. So I wanted to create this visual world around the 5 songs where you can travel through different rooms and see different visuals for every song, and not like if you make a nice music video and you just put it on YouTube, the second the video's over, you get suggestion for something new to watch from someone else. So I wanted to be this like space that's only her and no other, you know, distractions.
I loved it. It's so good.
Thank you.
Something you just touched on, Isabel, was the idea of creating cinematic imagery. And that's where I wanted to start with this discussion, because all of these works are incredibly cinematic. And what is it? Do you think that's conscious? Do you think creating sort of lockdown world, we've gravitated towards creating like really cinematic imagery? Why do you think that is?
Why? Probably just because, you know, at the moment, nothing's really becoming exciting, and
Check your mic. I don't know if you need to.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I guess, well, for me, I'm personally just, I like color, and so using lighting, that's just a handy, interesting way to create a scene. But then I guess like with not going to parties and being out and about traveling, like, I don't know, walking through London through the night, for me, I find it interesting, just like seeing all the different lights and everything. So because we haven't been, well, when I was making the work, we weren't doing that so much. So then kind of making myself say, oh, I'm going to go and use that as the like giant sign as part of my work. It kind of, because it's a physical form natural already, which is creating light, and it kind of, I don't know, it's yeah, I don't know, is that making sense?
No, it does. I don't know, that they feel like stills from a bigger narrative.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite, I think a lot of image makers have been drawn to doing that. It's the gut reflex, because it's such a brilliant way to make your imagery connect, because we're all sharing.
Yeah.
They just felt the most relatable imagery that I've sort of, you know, come across this year, you know. Felix, your work is also cinematic, but in like a completely different like breadth. Do you want to sort of elaborate on sort of your photographic process by the water?
Yeah, so I kind of just used the beach as a setting for a lot of the work I was doing. I don't think necessarily I was going for a cinematic look, but yeah, I can see what you mean where that sort of comes across a bit. Yeah, I think the process behind a lot of the work was quite a big part of it as well. It's like I produced a black and white film developer using bladder-wrack seaweed. So all the negatives were developed in seaweed, essentially. And they did give a certain look to the image that I think with some of them kind of reminded me of a lot of like impressionist early 20s sort of cinema. So.
Mm-hmm. And Simone, I mean, one of my favorite images from your series is the dollhouse that's behind you.
Yeah.
Do you want to, again, I think that's quite, there's a connection between that and Isabel's world, I think.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on like how conscious you were taking a picture like that in lockdown?
I think I don't know if it was very related to lockdown. It was more like, I don't know, I just did a lot of visual research, and it was kind of nice in the sense that during lockdown, I had time to do visual research, and it didn't have to have any sort of direction and meaning to it. I just collected images. And then I came across this, I think it was David LaChapelle for the Face magazine with Cameron Diaz and
Ewan McGregor.
Got the guy who's in it.
Yeah, it's Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a great visual. And then I've always loved doing stop motion and claymation. It was kind of just like off that, just wanted to make something around that look. And then I just kind of created the image. Didn't have that much thought behind it. It was just something fun and kind of that, because the whole EP, the music is very much about the stages you go through when you're in a relationship and it's bad and you have a blackout night, and how you start off with like the nice feeling of a blackout being like you don't care about anything, and then you kind of see yourself from an outside point of view being like, what am I doing? I'm making a fool out of myself. And to then like the day after, the remorse and how you feel so stupid. So the music was kind of about that, and then through different images. So I wanted just, nail it, get to like see herself from a different point of view. So yeah.
I think that also brings up, like, you've all had to create these, these final projects of your degree in extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
Do you even feel necessary to reference lockdown, or do you want to just make work in spite of lockdown?
For me, I don't feel like you kind of necessarily need to reference it. For me, this whole year, like, it's actually been the best year of my life. Just because, I don't know, like the way I take my photographs, I don't really need to be reliable on anyone else. Like it's me and my model. And yeah, I don't really feel like, even though, yes, lockdown like partially inspired some aspects or like builds on the concept of my project, and I feel like a lot of my classmates' projects, but I think because, I don't know, we're creative people naturally, so
I think for me the only like lockdown inspiration for the project is kind of the fact they became like a digital platform. I maybe would have done something more live if it like a physical show if it wasn't for lockdown, but like the actual work, it didn't come from lockdown. I think maybe like it probably pushed myself to make more than I would have otherwise, because I had so much time and I couldn't really move from the spaces that I had around me. And you just kind of become crafty with what you got, in a sense. So yeah, I think that's the thing that pushed it.
Nini, what do you think? Did lockdown shape your magazine, or would it have looked the same had it not been made in these circumstances?
Well, I think it would have looked the same, but I would maybe have more content, because the way I was producing was I wanted to have original imagery, so I didn't want to have anything from archive. Only thing I have from archive is the piece about Untamed Fashion Assembly, and I went into great lengths to get the images that were not online or anything. So I would have done more in that sense, and also of course I would have spoken to people in person and interviewed people in person, which would have been much better than doing it on Zoom. But on the other hand, I could speak to people who are like in Moscow or in Mexico. So yeah, but the main thing that it affected was the research process, because we couldn't go to the libraries and we had such limited access to libraries. And the way I research is just browsing through the library rather than having this like very specific idea of what I want to find on the internet. So in a way, it affected.
It's very tricky because that course is sort of notorious for encouraging the library, and it becomes indispensable, and then suddenly it's inaccessible. Very tricky. But I like the point that you brought up, that you were talking to a more global selection of people that was sort of immediately more available. Do you think, the second that, are we still going to be talking, do you know what I mean? Are we still going to be talking like this after the pandemic in a few years' time? Do you think this has just changed sort of, there's so much, people are so much more willing to sort of communicate. It's easier to get to people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think definitely, because people have realized that you don't actually have to be at a certain place to do something. And I don't know, I think we've changed the way we think about time as well. Because it's like you can speak to someone for 15 minutes on Zoom and not spend 2 hours going somewhere. So in my experience, yes, people who are in London, for example, have been more willing to do it even after lockdown and stuff like that, speak to me for the magazine. So yeah, I think there will be some positive like change from that, in that sense, I think.
I think, we're also seeing how it's changed, like the schedule of London Fashion Week. And I was just looking at the schedule and just how many sort of new names there are on there. It's kind of incredible. And when you compare it to just, a few seasons ago, so many of the bigger brands are just doing their own thing on their own time, their own release. Has this sort of broken the regimental schedule, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah. I feel like a lot of brands don't even have seasons anymore. They just kind of call the collection something and that's it. And they put out the pictures when they want to. Like, I feel like I barely know what season it is anymore because it's coming in and out kind of when it suits the brand. And I think that will probably
stay.
That?
I think that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's kind of more natural.
Yeah.
People who are, I don't know, creative people. It doesn't, like, your ideas come in weird waves. So it kind of seems strange to have quite strict, regimented ways with the seasons, to me.
People have been sort of flirting with the idea of like abandoning the seasons for a long time, and it's finally happened. I do wonder, will it stick around, or are people just desperate to, city hop for a month again?
I feel like it'll stay around for, like, yeah, I don't know if it's gonna go back. But then again, I guess people in the industry are like desperate for normal shows and getting to meet everyone in the same city, which, like, I don't know, it just feels quite old school. I think for me, my favorite shows this past year has been the like really interesting digital one, like the Martine Rose show. I thought was incredible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need the traveling. It doesn't need the like kind of exclusive elites world to fashion. So yeah, I'm hoping it stays like this.
I do think it's the best ideas have been the ones that are not pretending to sort of try and do the old thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A new idea done really well.
Yeah, completely something new that is not connected to a runway or anything like that. It's just nice visuals for the clothes, basically.
I also think it has encouraged brands to think more about the world that they're closely in, and not necessarily just models walking up and down the same catwalk. And like, we've seen amazing films from designers. So I think that's really positive, because then you're actually thinking about where these clothes are going to live, as opposed to just creating clothes.
Yeah, I mean, that point about world building is another thing that I think completely connects all of your projects, because they're also within their own world. And I do think, like, world building in lockdown is an incredibly personal thing. We've been with our own minds for the longest time. Do you think these are like quite personal projects that you're presenting?
I think
for me, I kind of decided not to make it too personal. And I don't know if it was a constant, like, I don't know why. I just wanted to collaborate with someone, and like in a time when you weren't allowed to see anyone. Like, thankfully my flatmate made a beautiful piece of music that I could work with, but I then decided I didn't want it to be about myself or have anything to do with me, really. I just wanted to create something beautiful and something that I believed in as a concept in music of, I don't think the format of releasing music is quite old school. So yeah.
Well, it's that thing of releasing albums is more of, it's on its own schedule, isn't it? That's sort of what we were talking about before, whereas with fashion, there's such a predetermined sort of regimen to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect parallel as, talking about fashion and the idea of releasing an album, like, when it's ready.
Exactly. And that, and the thing of, like, doesn't matter how much money or time you spend on the music, it ends up in the same 5 platforms, and it's also lost in 5 minutes because it's so much already, and it doesn't really, like, music and the videos don't really get their own space for a very long time. It's just that second it's out, and then you've seen it, and then it's gone in, like, the rest of everything. So yeah, it was interesting, just like building this one place for that EP, and then that can stay there forever, and you can go back and watch it, and it's just that.
Mhm. Nini, your piece about the rigor mortis article, I loved. And do you want to elaborate on sort of this community of people? I consider it world building as well. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to
Yeah,
sort of elaborate on what you came across while writing that?
Yeah, I think I'm always on the lookout for finding something in Eastern Europe because I'm from Georgia, and I heard about this amazing Untamed Fashion Assembly, which was in 90s Riga, and they had this crazy garments made out of like trash and like really rubbish materials from Soviet Union, and there's not that much written about it. So I contacted guy who was organizing it, Bruno Bermanis, and apparently Andrew Logan, Scarlett Khan, and all these people were going there in the 90s. And they were literally building their own world because it was the period when like Soviet Union hadn't ended yet, but then like capitalism hadn't come in. So it was like this in between. And like Andrew Logan says in the article, like all we could do was party. So they were like partying in these crazy garments. So I think that was, yeah, it was a world of its own. And I don't know, like, I was thinking of my magazine as like when you mentioned world building, as like this like underground club sort of thing where all this like work lives digitally. So definitely had like link to world building, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a tale as old as time, isn't it? Of like the underground club culture building, the world for the next decade, in a way, which I think it touches on. And isn't that the sort of conclusion you drew at the end of the magazine? Like clubbing is the way.
Yeah, I think it was not just clubbing is the way, but it was more like having a community. And like when I was looking at my magazine, like I have people from all over the world. It's not just Eastern Europe, but like if you look at them, you would think that they were all friends in a way, the work they create. So it was more sort of like having this community and then like giving them platform, which in my mind was this like derelict underground club. Yeah.
What do we think about this idea of like the lockdown world is in the mind? Like, Isabel, how did you sort of start constructing these images? What was the impetus?
The what?
Like the impetus. How would you draw on, I want this girl in this car in this red light? How does that come together?
It comes together by, I kind of, most of the time I either remember, it's like it's all from within me. It's either me feeling a memory or enjoy like the pleasure of driving in a car with that one. But there is this kind of waiting in between, you're going in between states, locations. It's a place, I don't know, just when you're driving, it's the thinking time. And then with some of the other photographs, it's about the location. It's like there's a photograph of the girl with the with the underpass in the background, with quite yellow light. That one, that was in Rotherhithe, and there's this huge bridge, and it kind of there's these structural spaces. I don't know, liminal space.
Yeah.
It's like a funny in between passing through physically, but then also, yes, relating it to the kind of mental state of the uncertain, not necessarily uncertainty, because that makes it sound a bit negative, but kind of waiting feeling. Just want to think of the other pictures. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I'm quite spontaneous really when I make my photographs, and it's a lot about the model or the subject, I guess, because it's not so much that they are models, because the person, to me, I'm drawn to them as a person as well, being interesting, because I think that, yeah, definitely changes the photograph and how I interact with them.
Yes, Simone, you were sort of, you spent the whole project working with this, your flatmate, this one artist. How much of it sort of the same way, how do these images come from your mind? Did they come from references? Did they come from
It was
like a
yeah, I think it's kind of similar. I think also because of how the year looked, it all kind of was quite spontaneous. So like the first couple of weeks of when like university was open, the first couple of weeks when we just started, and I did like one shoot quickly in the studios there, and just kind of it ended up just being me playing around with those images. But then everything else from that we shot in. I have a tiny studio in Hackney, which I'm sitting in, and we just kind of made it work from this little space. And it was just like, yeah, like this dress where we printed her face on. It was all kind of on a whim. It was just like, let's do something fun. And then I think because I worked on it the whole year, I just kind of collectively put it all together, and then it kind of became what it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was interesting just working with one person the whole time and just having one focus of building kind of her look for the project as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Felix, is there much like planning going into creating, these are quite timeless imagery. How much of it, has gone into it beforehand, or are you just winging it?
I think it's a bit of both. It's sort of, some of it was very, very planned, but others it was more, I'd like sort of think, oh, I'm going to go shoot in 5 minutes, and I go out, and I was lucky enough to live with my partner at the time, so who's also on this same course as us, and so we ended up just both shooting each other for each other's projects, really. So yeah, about half my project I photographed her, but yeah, it was sort of, I'd go out and with a couple of things to sort of try and style and sort of shoot with, and there's a lot of trial and error. Like something wasn't quite right when I'd come back and process the film, so I'd then go and retry it a few times. Yeah, there was bits of spontaneity, but I think a lot of the images were quite premeditated.
Mm-hmm. There's something about lockdown worlds that just lend themselves so well to fashion imagery, I think. Do you know what I mean? Like a sort of a distinct emptiness to the world. And that's something that I think's popped up quite a lot in the imagery made in the last year. It doesn't necessarily look different to, the history of fashion photography, because fashion photography has always been so sort of bleak, empty, virtual spaces. I was wondering if you're sort of, I don't know if you have a thought. I don't know what I mean by that, but like, fashion imagery is almost, it's too quiet to be true.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like with the project I was doing, sort of subconsciously, a lot of the images I was making, there was, I think there's only one in the whole series where you can actually fully see someone's face. A lot of it's kind of obscured, and I think it kind of creates this sort of like distant sort of feeling, I suppose. Yeah, a kind of isolated feeling, which I guess comes from where the world is right now.
Yeah. Simone, were you going to say anything?
No, it's just that, it's like fashion imagery has that kind of, because it's also perfect and like, it's very much its own bubble, and it's nothing like reality. And I guess that's why you like looking at it, because it's like, oh, it's like a really, like, you want to see something that is in your own reality. And I guess that's the thing with like lockdown worlds. You're building your own world because everything around you is a mess, and you just want to be somewhere else. And then you create something that isn't that.
I think it's something we've seen so many times in the collections as well. I mean, there's so many, just domestic interiors is such a theme that keeps popping up. You could do a whole like retrospective on lockdown domestic interiors. Like, do people, I don't know, like why are brands latching onto that image? Are we not sick of the sight of indoors? Do we not want escapism? Or is it just cheaper just to shoot in your home,
They just want to reflect. They're sort of trying to reflect what's going on, and they think that that's the way, which I don't really like, because as you mentioned, we're all stuck at home and we don't really want to see that. Like, I can just
Does-
look around if I want to see that.
Is there not, fashion industry has the duty to just escapism,
Yeah.
surely, you know, and then,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was also like a lack of option to be able to go out and shoot lots of places. Like for most of this year, we haven't really had any access to university facilities. It's been like a couple of months here and there. And so there hasn't really been studio access. And I suppose you can go to odd locations here and there, but it's, yeah, there's been a definite limit to what we've been able to do.
It is, you have to be resourceful with the people around you as much as the spaces around you.
Yeah.
All your lockdown, were you just relying on friends, relying on each other to create this sort of imagery, everyone?
Yeah, for me it was friends and just plucking up the courage to ask some random people.
Yeah.
And just making it work, really. I think it's just kind of trusting yourself, really, and knowing what you want to do. And if you believe in what you want to do, then you could just make it happen, really. That's what I figured out from this project.
Yeah, same. It was all like a collaboration of like your close group of friends, just people that lived close to you. They'll come and help you, like assist on things. But yeah.
For me, it was like managing people not only here and like working with friends, but also I was lucky that, like, for example, in Moscow, like restrictions were not as bad. So people in Moscow who I was writing about could like produce imagery, same in Mexico or like in Antwerp. So in that sense, it was lucky. But yeah, in London, it was all about like finding friends who could do something.
It's been really tough in London to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, it was hard because university was closed. You had no resource, like you couldn't, loan store was closed. Everything was kind of what you owned or what a friend owned that you could borrow from a friend. And then in the beginning, it was actually like scary seeing people. So you didn't want to see strangers, so you didn't want to go and lend stuff from like strangers. It was
Strangers
interesting.
Want anything to do with you either. It's sort of, you try and collaborate with people and people try and keep their distance a bit.
Yeah.
I love it. Felix, do you want to elaborate on this developing technique that you created? It sounds like the peak of resourcefulness.
Being on the beach, there was always seaweed. And I found like a lot of people seem to be developing film at home, and a lot of it was a lot of film developers kept going out of stock. And I got in touch with one of the old technicians who used to work at CSM, who was kind of trying something similar. And he sort of shared a recipe with me, and then I sort of tweaked it a little bit to get a result that I quite liked. And there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of blank rolls of film coming out, but yeah, eventually worked out.
Do you think, I mean, this is why I just don't touch film, but like, is that not the most terrifying feeling, like a blank roll of film coming out?
Yeah, it was a bit distressing at points, especially when they had like weekly tutorials and like need to be turning out new work every week and stuff. But yeah, luckily, I guess it sort of came together in the end. So
It's wonderful. There's such good pictures.
Yeah.
Is there like, has anything in the fashion industry stuck out as like a great? Has anyone done anything great in the industry that you think, oh, that's it, that's my favorite thing of the year? Because I struggle to think.
Yeah.
Are we not all just waiting just to like make stuff as normal again?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, when I first saw, I really like enjoyed the Martine Rose show, the first digital thing she did. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a new, fresh idea. And I liked the idea because that was obviously peak of lockdown. So everyone actually were at home all over the world. And I thought the way she reflected it and the casting, I thought was really good. But other than that, not really.
I just say it because, you know, I struggle to just remember anything that I've seen in the last year. Do you not think?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that has to do because we're looking at it online. So maybe that's the downside of having virtual shows. So you can't remember it, because when you go somewhere into a physical show, you're going to remember it because you were there. And there were more collections this year, right? Because of like having it digitally. So there's just like this constant stream of information, and people doing like separate visuals for Instagram and then like separate collections for like, I don't know. So maybe it was too much.
But also I feel like, I don't know, I feel like everyone's kind of lost perception of time and space, and you're just kind of living, because you know, I don't know, I haven't had a schedule properly for the past year. So yeah, I have no sense of time anymore.
Because I think, do we need like that timetable, that Fashion Week timetable, just to remind us what to look at? Or is this like this stream of information coming out whenever it needs to? Does it really work?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know, actually.
It's a tricky one. Of this season, my favorite thing, I just always like what Bethany Williams does. It's just fab, you know, and it like lends itself to sort of, I don't know, she was thinking like this before it all happened.
Yeah, no,
that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's very beautiful. The one thing that like I kind of sometimes miss in fashion is just I feel like a lot of fashion is now, it's always speaking about the times, and it's political, and it's very, sometimes I just want to see something beautiful that doesn't have to be connected to an issue, and maybe that's ignorant because, you know, you're just trying to think of something else. But I think that's something that I miss a little bit.
Did we get the escapism we're talking about on the St. Martin's BA designers catwalk?
I guess so. I like the idea that everyone got to show, but then I kind of wish the catwalk didn't look like it did. I think it took away from the clothes. It was too much happening for my liking.
I think there was just complete abandon of like silhouette across the board, which is wonderful. But like, I didn't know where to look the whole time, you know.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, I think what they tried to do was amazing, because then it was a physical show, and that was nice. But you know, it's hard because it's live streamed, and the filming wasn't like trained perfect, and like obviously because the designers walk themselves, it's like, you know, it's hard keeping the right distance for the cameras, and then like the patchwork with the big sculptures, and it was just a lot happening. And I think it would have been nice if it was just about the clothes. But yeah, I guess they tried to just, you know, make it fun and exciting. That's what I think.
Any more thoughts from anyone on the St. Martin's BA?
I really like they modeled their own collections, because that was kind of fun. And also what I liked, of course, like fashion school collections always like stick out, but I'm really excited to see fashion that is not wearable, because everyone seems to like, I don't know, even looking at this season, everyone seems to create clothes that are like comfortable to like, because we've spent so much time in like tracksuit bottoms and stuff. And I think the clever ones are the ones you find balance between like wearability but also fantasy. So it's not just continuation of what we've been wearing for 2 years, because everyone's sick of that.
It was
it was so nice to
keep going.
It was just nice to see everyone's work finally, kind of like having not been surrounded by it throughout the whole year and everything, with the whole like buzz of that final year rush thing, and I don't know, just afterwards celebrating, I guess, with everyone. And we were talking the other day on Friday night, I think, saying how it kind of felt like the first few days of CSM, like when all the fashion classes, they're all joined together in the studios, like FCP, fashion journalism, the like introduce yourselves. And because we'd had placement year with it, so we weren't here for a year, and then COVID. So then hanging out again after being very detached, it was suddenly like, oh, this is so nice, and everyone's so talented, and seeing it all like that, that was, I don't know, I really appreciated it, and appreciate other people's hard work, really.
Sad. It sounds great. It's I don't know, to me, I think to me lockdown worlds are incredibly introspective, and I think, you know, it's almost, you've had this sort of an incredible chance to create these works and just be alone with your thoughts for over a year, you know. I do think everyone's done like extremely well. They're really like ambitious projects for the time, and you all kind of really pulled it off. So like, well done to everyone. Is there anything anyone else would like to add while we're here? We good?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, so thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for watching. For more extensive Fashion Week coverage, be sure to visit showstudio.com. And if you're watching via Show Studio's YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.